Hello, 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 and welcome to the College of Creation. My name is Dan.
And my name is Michael.
And we are Dungeons & Dragons dungeon masters who love to homebrew items, spells, creatures, and features for D&D 5th edition D&D, which is changing. Don't freak out, it's not changing that much. But on this show, we make new homebrew every single week based on prompts that we get from our community. Take it, run with it, present it to each other, and try and surprise and delight each other every single week. How are you this week, Michael?
I'm doing very well. Up until last night, I was skeptical about this prompt. I had a very difficult time with 2/3 of it, and today I'm feeling much better.
I loved this prompt to reacquaint our audience. This week we were hit with a prompt for a spell, item, or feat that manipulates time, action economy, or initiative order in a new and creative way. And we decided it would be fun to make 3 things. Let's make an item, let's make a feat, and a spell. And each one should deal with one of those aspects, time, action economy, and initiative order, in a different way. And I think that was a really great tip that you brought in, a really great idea that you thought of, because I think it did stretch me to not do like 3 versions of the same thing, but like really try and make each spell, feat, and item feel really distinct, unique, and figure out which aspect fit the best with each of those elements.
Yeah, there was kind of a strategy that had to go into deciding which one fit with which prompt, and mine started in a different place than I finished this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I had 3 completely different iterations of these last Friday than I do now, and I think all for the better. I think the ones that I have now are really great, and I'm very happy to present them today.
Yeah, this was a really, really fun one. I love playing with time and action economy and like weird stuff like that in the game. It is tricky. You know, the game plays with time in such a strange way across all the mechanics that, you know, things that manipulate it can be a little bit tricky to balance, but I do think it's a fun exercise.
Yeah, it can be tough because there are already a lot of things that do take a stab at it already. Obviously, the biggest one is the spell Time Stop, which has been, the precedent has been set that this type of thing is a 9th level thing to do. So how do you make time, or the adjustment of time, a little bit more attainable too? Because how many campaigns do you get to where you really get to dig into 9th level spells?
Yeah. And
how often are you taking Time Stop when you get to that point? So this was rife with small challenges here and there, but welcome challenges nonetheless.
Yeah, I had a very good time coming up with this. I will say, you know, I have yet to dig too deeply into the new player's handbook. For a while, you know, the stuff I have been making and probably will be making for a while here are still going to be relying on, I think, my understanding of the 2014 versions of the rules. But
sure,
I think it is worth us taking a moment to maybe discuss some of the things that we have gotten into within the new rule books and talk about what we like that has changed and what because I know a lot of the things that they changed are in regards to that formatting, are in regards to that, like, you know, just making things a lot easier to read and understand and approach, especially for new people and things like that. Just cleaning up a lot of the wording, clarifying so many things. And I've really liked and appreciated a lot of those, not so much mechanical changes, but really the like approachability and ease of use changes.
Yeah, so we're sitting here mid-September at this point. We're recording this. As of right now, the Player's Handbook has come out, the 2024 Player's Handbook. So that is character options. So we have classes, subclasses, spells, backgrounds, and feats. Basically, that's the core of the new material that we've seen en masse so far, which I think was smart. I think that's a good place to start. That's where you start the game so that obviously should be the thing that you lead off with going into a new edition. What I noticed most looking into this, and total transparency, I have not looked at all of it. I'm about halfway through, maybe, roughly looking through things, kind of jumping back and forth between the bundles of things that have come out, is that not a lot of it is grossly different. The structure of everything is much better. There are a lot of clear subheadings. There's a lot of very clear direction that was a little bit lacking in the 2014 versions of all of these things. Feats in particular. So I think maybe serendipitously, this was the prompt that we were meant to do this week, because in the middle of all of this stuff, this is the type of thing that's not changing at a fundamental level. So this is a good bridge going forward.
There are a couple, I think, big material changes that I think are actually quite good. The one I'm thinking of that's sort of the biggest core thing when it comes to character creation that seems to be different, and that I actually think I really appreciate it, is the way backgrounds work. And now I still think that there is some room to open it up to things like your narrative background features that you made. Gosh, I don't remember what episode that was, but you made
the spell scroll alternatives.
You made these spell scroll alternatives that really weren't spell scroll alternatives, but they were an incredible tool, I think, for narratively tying in rewards to playing alongside your background and to playing into the archetype that you chose with your background. I love that kind of thing. I think that thing still has a lot of room to work with these new backgrounds, but the way it informs your character creation is, I think, a lot more seamless. A lot more effective for, I guess, communicating how your background functions and factors into what your character is good at. So your ability score improvement at first level when you create your character isn't tied to your species or your race or your lineage anymore. It is tied to your background. And it also is limited by the background to 3 skills that you can choose from. So you can't be like, I'm going to be, now I don't remember all of them off the top of my head, but something like an entertainer background, right? I think you get dexterity, wisdom, and charisma, I think, as options that you can apply that +2 and +1 bonus to, or that +1 bonus across all 3. But, your background is going to inform maybe I wouldn't normally get a strength bonus from this background because that's not what this background is built for. And even if, I pick a barbarian or whatever else, it functions more as a narrative choice. And I think functions as an interesting role play choice in a way that so often the original 2014 backgrounds did not do.
That's such an interesting thing too. Great change. I completely agree with everything that you said about this. An interesting thing about shifting all of that to the background, I feel like it gives so much more worth to something that's narratively driven and almost balances the game. And you and I have talked at length about how D&D and TTRPGs in general should not inherently be a competitive space.
Yeah.
But we've all had, power gamers at our tables. I don't think power gaming is a bad style of play. I will say that as a caveat here. But we've all had power gamers at our tables, stand shoulder to shoulder with the narrative person in combat. And it's like they take all the hits, they deliver all the hits, and the narrative guy, like the bard, to use the entertainment example, ends up being largely a support player, giving more options and more breadth to backgrounds and feats makes it a little bit more balanced between the play styles. It gives a little bit more leeway. If you want to have that big, heavy narrative piece to your character, you can also still be viable in combat or in a social situation when before that might not be the case every time.
Yeah, and I think just like you're saying, when you take that, the way that those things are meaningful, and place them in the background, and you kind of spread them out a little bit more, I think it makes for a character that feels more balanced, not necessarily to say more balanced mechanically, but more balanced across all of these aspects of the character, have sort of equal meaning and weight to who the character is.
Yes.
Right? Your background
Yeah.
now has more weight, and it also allows for your lineage choice to be more flexible. So you're not having to say, well, your lineage gives you one feature, but your biggest thing you get from it is the ability score improvement, which
Right,
is, there's some tricky issues with that, with physiological determinism and whatever else. But
Yeah.
you also allow for the species choice to feel more like it has its own unique identity through special features, through special actions,
Absolutely.
through access
Absolutely.
to different active choices, right? So you're making these active
Yeah.
choices using your class, your species, and now your background is looped into that too, and the introduction of origin feats.
Yep.
And by sort of tiering feats to specific levels means that there are some low level feats, and you can kind of silo those away and say these are ones that people can take early and tie into your background, ideally also might tie into your your class, potentially might tie into your species, but all get looped in together. And so each of these pieces, your feat, your background, your species, and your class, all feel like they have slightly more equal weight in how you think about and build your character. And I think that's great.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, anyway, Michael, we've been talking for too long about these rules, but I think we're in agreement. And I'm looking forward to seeing what else comes out as the DMG and the Monster Manual also get released. So, but for now,
agree.
Shall we
I agree.
get to business as usual?
Yeah, let's go. If you'd like to open your document.
Yes.
I call these time and other things.
Time and
Basic
other
enough.
things.
I'd like to start with my spell. I went with Action Economy for my spell. So this is a spell that changes action economy or manipulates action economy in a new way. I call this Sacrificial Bide. This is a 6th level enchantment spell. It's a casting time of 1 action, the range of self, and then at 30 feet, which will be explained in a moment. Verbal, somatic, and material components. It requires a ceremonial athletic baton made of silver or gold, worth at least 200 gold pieces. That's like a relay baton.
Nice.
And the duration is up to 1 minute, requiring concentration. Drawing on the powers of the Weave. You begin to store energy up for 1 minute. While concentrating on the spell, your movement speed is reduced by 10 feet, and you make Constitution saving throws at disadvantage. When the spell ends, either by elapsing after 10 rounds, manually as a free action, or broken concentration, you can give a number of extra actions equal to the number of rounds spent concentrating on Sacrificial Bide to creatures of your choice within 30 feet of you. No single creature can receive more than 1 additional action, and all additional actions must be taken during the creature's next turn. So you basically just sit and wait.
Yeah.
So I wanted to put in enough limiting factors that this isn't crazy strong. So you have to give your bonus action every turn to keep it going. You take a movement speed cut. You have disadvantage on saving throws to keep your concentration up. And you can't give a ton of actions to one person. You can't stack actions onto your tank. And they have to be within 30 feet of you. So assuming that you're kind of trying to hide while the bite is going, you will have to venture into more dangerous waters to be within range to give those actions. Yeah. But if you can survive all of that and spend 200 gold to cast this, you can have up to 10 free actions if you have 10 allies on the board somewhere.
That's very cool. I mean, I can definitely imagine a situation where you just hold up for 9.5 minutes before rushing into combat and just hold on, folks.
Right.
Or not 9.5 minutes. 9 rounds.
Just 9 rounds. Yeah.
Hold out for 9 rounds just to wait wait, okay, now everybody roll initiative, and my first action will be to drop concentration and then give to everybody.
Right.
Which I think would be really cool and great. Because yeah, I mean that's a 6th level spell. That's no joke. Plus
Right.
200 gold pieces for your first round.
I thought about
ideally
7th,
really huge.
but yeah, I thought about 7th at first and not having as many limiting factors, but I really like the idea of you're just at every disadvantage. You're making your saves at disadvantage. You can't run as quickly. You have to expend resources to do it. So I think 6th feels good.
Yeah, and I think that especially the limiting factor of not giving more than one additional action to any one creature does mean that, like, you know, at most you're probably talking about a party of, let's be honest, on the high side, maybe 8. But like, then you are
typically like 4 to 6.
You're probably not going to have that many allies that you're going to be utilizing a full 10 extra actions, because you just can't.
Right.
There's not enough people around. But you can give those extra actions around, and then everybody gets a second action for one turn, which is definitely a game changer, no doubt. But is also, I don't think it's broken based on all of the other limiting factors here. I think that would be really great for just to turn the tide of a nasty battle would be great. I do have a question. If your concentration gets broken before it loops back around to your turn, do you get any additional actions, or is it like you have to complete one full round of concentration before you get one?
That is a good stipulation to add. Yeah, complete rounds is what I was thinking. So if you don't make it through, it would be, because even how often are you going to be at the bottom of the turn order every single time? If you're in the middle or at the top of the turn order, really you max out at 9 most of the time. Yeah, I think complete rounds, if your concentration is broken, you have to decide on the creatures right then and there. It is a decision in that moment based on the amount of elapsed rounds that you've gone through.
So if you pop it up on your turn and then you drop concentration like 2 turns later, nobody would get any, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because you haven't made it through a round, yeah.
That'd be a tough one to take to burn a 6th level spell slot for, but there's a strategic.
That's
way
the
to
risk,
use it.
though.
Yeah, that is
because
risk.
if you can get up to 4 or 5 and give your entire party an extra action on their next turn, that is huge.
So cool.
It is a big risk reward. Yeah,
so cool.
For sure.
I also really appreciate the action rather than like boosting anyone's damage or boosting anyone's like number of attacks. It's specifically number of actions, so you can mess around with how that gets used for utility or healing or damage, whatever. Very cool.
The fighter can take another 3 attacks or whatever they can, but the bard or the cleric can heal you.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit flexible in that regard.
I like that.
Moving on to my feat. So I chose initiative for my feat, and I did kind of lay this out like the 2024 feats. You have to be at least level 6 to take this, and you have to have at least a 13 charisma score. I call this the Jumble Joust. Whether by smoke and mirrors, mental trickery, or humble persuasion, you have a knack for throwing others off balance in a fight. You gain the following benefits. Your wisdom or charisma score increases by 1 to a maximum of 20.
Nice.
If your initiative roll before your modifier is closer to 10 than it is to 1 or 20, you can use 10 instead. And once per round, when you hit another creature with a weapon attack, you can use a bonus action to change its initiative count by plus or minus 1. This change takes effect at the top of the next round. So you can continuously be changing initiative order as it goes based on who you are attacking once per round. So you can change it once every 6 seconds.
Interesting. Very interesting. You're going to love to see mine.
That's great.
Yeah, no, that's very fun. I really like the balanced entry. I really like that.
Because it can be strategic either way,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
If you really want to go as close to the top of the round as possible and you roll a 5, you can round up to
You
10.
pull that up, especially if you have a great bonus to initiative. That can
But if you need other party members to go first, or you're waiting, if you're banking on using a reaction to an enemy's attack, you can say, no, I don't want that 14. I'd rather take 10. and kind of back off in that regard too.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting.
Thank you, man.
I think that the plus or minus one is also interesting because that may or may not change the actual initiative order, right? Like if you're only adding one, like that, there might be a gap of 3 between that person and the next person in the initiative order.
Yeah, you might have to wear it down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You might have
got to really work at it.
So I think it's interesting to not put it at a flat, like move it up or down, but instead change its initiative count.
Add the actual count. Yeah.
Interesting. Very cool.
Yep.
Very cool. What's your item?
This is the one I did not like my other thing. We were talking last night. I was in a rough spot with my item.
Sure.
I didn't like what it did. I was ready to present it and feel fine about it. But I was coming home last night. Dio, Ronnie James Dio, came on my radio.
Lovely.
And I was listening to Holy Diver. I was like, what does this song even mean? What is the song even about? And so I looked into it, and the song Holy Diver is about an entity that is responsible for the judgment of humanity.
Okay,
like it is the creature that goes in and kind of imposes judgment on other people. And so I call this the Holy Driver. This is a legendary weapon. It's a club.
Ronnie.
It requires attunement by a creature with either a good or evil alignment. That is important.
Okay.
Bathed in the divine waters of the gods, this golden weapon gleams in the light of the sun as it casts judgment on all who oppose its wielder. You gain a +3 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with this weapon. It has an almighty sentience feature.
Nice.
The Holy Driver serves as the judge of humanity and other creatures. It is a sentient weapon with an intelligence of 15, a wisdom of 22, and a charisma of 11. Upon attunement, it adopts your alignment. It has dark vision out to a range of 60 feet and automatically knows the alignment of every creature within a 10-foot radius. Ooh. The weapon can speak, read, and understand common, and can communicate with its wielder telepathically. Its voice is chipper, exuding delight and determination whenever it's used. While you're attuned to it, the Holy Driver also understands every language that you know.
Nice.
Typical sentient stuff. It has an eye for the misaligned feature. While attuned to the Holy Driver, your wisdom score, as well as its maximum, increases by 2, and none of your ability scores can be decreased in any way.
Ooh.
So you have a bit of a defense against those type of things. They're a bit rare, but if they do come up, you're good. And it has a rebuke feature. This is kind of the pillar of what this weapon does. When another creature whose alignment is opposite yours and has hit you with a melee weapon attack this round finishes their turn. So it has to have both. They have to oppose you and they have had to attack you. You can use your reaction to engage the Holy Driver. This reaction rewinds the target creature's turn without it regaining any expended resources, material components, charges, limited use features, spell slots, etc. This creature can then take its turn again, but it is prohibited from using any movement or actions that were taken on the rewinded turn. Ooh. So not only does it lose all of the components that it spent, it also can't choose to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Once the rebuke feature has been used, you can't do so again until you spend at least 1 uninterrupted hour communing with the Holy Driver.
Wow. I like that rebuke feature a lot. You undo the turn, but also remove the resources and take away the option to use the same thing again.
Yeah.
Oh,
so even if they
so
have
cool.
resources to do it, they don't have that option, at least for that one turn.
That's so cool. See, I had,
so it's like time stop light.
Yeah. One of the ideas that I had when doing my stuff was trying to do something similar to that, which is like trying to be like, you know, you can target a creature and that creature can't use the same actions twice or like in the next round, but it was like jumbly complicated. And I was like, I don't know. I throw it away. I like this a lot. I think this is really cool because it all functions on the same turn, right? It loops it into a closed system basically, which I think is a lot easier to manage.
It's so difficult. Time is really hard in combat because if you try and manipulate around that affects so many creatures that it's impossible to make that balanced. Like it's broken regardless.
Not impossible.
No matter how you write it.
Hard. Not impossible.
I can't wait. I can't wait for yours. It is incredibly difficult,
Yes,
right?
no.
There's so many working parts. So if you boil it down to just a turn,
Yeah.
just a single character's turn, and you only rewind them, it makes it a little bit more streamlined.
Yeah. It makes it a lot easier to undo anything that happened really, really quickly, and also puts a finite like top and bottom on it. It doesn't require a ton of like super close combat logging, because you can, for the most part, remember, oh yeah, you took this much damage just a second ago. Your HP was at this, and now put it back at that, or whatever, And I love just taking away the option to use that same action again, because that's so
Thank you.
limiting for so many things, right? Like that's going to be obviously maybe not a huge limitation for like a super high level spellcaster, but it is really limiting for things that only have a set number of actions.
It can be debilitating, especially if the thing that they did was like the thing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Their kind of fail safe.
It's like your recharge 6 feature. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
that would suck.
The one thing that I had a hard time figuring out was when the reaction would come online in the order of combat. For a long time, it was, I had it placed right after getting hit. So if you get hit by a creature that opposes your alignment, you can use this reaction to blah, 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 blah. Same thing. But this way, you can use your reaction after the turn is done.
Right.
As long as they hit you in their turn,
Right.
you can you get hit and you're like, okay, I'll let you finish, but it's not going to matter.
Right, exactly.
In a
Like,
couple moments,
do your thing.
You can go on.
But it especially means
go
that
off.
like you could get hit with something and it's like, okay, that hurt, but that's not a big deal. Oh, but then you just used a phase step or a misty step to like try and get away. Absolutely not. That's not happening. That part is not
We're
happening.
going back to the beginning of your turn. Yep.
And now you don't have access to that misty step anymore. You can't do that.
Correct.
Now, which is
Now
good.
you could use, Thunder Step or Far Step. You can get out a different way
you
if you
have
want
those
to
things.
spend a higher spell slot, and that also includes like the attack action.
Right. Yeah.
So like this could be hugely debilitating for a fighter or
massively,
a paladin. If the only thing you did for a turn is attack 4 times and move, I'm going to reverse that, and you can. What?
It's worth noting also that like there's that limiting factor on that action, that like it has to be something with an opposite alignment and all of this other stuff. But like I do think the item is also really dope outside of that feature. Like, yes, that feature is the core thing that makes it the holy driver, but as a magic item, you would want this anyway, right? You would absolutely want to have this for the Eye of the Misaligned, and for the +3 bonus are just such good features that that the Rebuke is, it feels like a core thing, but it also feels like if you don't use it all that often, it's totally fine. And
Still okay.
And you're going to be able to use
Still
it
okay.
in the moment when it matters, and when it's cool, it's going to be great. Well balanced across the board, I think.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm really happy with all 3 of these. I think that this is one of my strongest showings in a couple weeks. I like these a lot.
Same.
What about you?
Yeah, I actually, as it turns out, made exactly the same choices for which elements to tie to each of the item, feat, or spell choices. So it's an initiative order feat, it's an action economy spell, and it's a time item. I've called these Time is on My Side because the following creations deal with the manipulation of game mechanics around time and action economy, controlling the flow of battle, who acts when, how prepared is each combatant, and what actions are even available is often the deciding factor between success and failure. With these tools, one can give themselves the edge in this regard and perhaps turn the tides in their favor. So the first one is a feat. It's called Hijacker, and it's gonna sound familiar. Getting the drop on you is challenging, and maintaining the upper hand against you doubly so. When you hit a creature with a weapon or spell attack, you can use your reaction to force that creature down one place in the current initiative order. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. After you expended all uses, you must complete a long rest before doing so again.
Okay.
So this, you hit them with a weapon attack or spell attack, and they just go down in the order.
Yeah.
They get pushed down regardless of where they are. I didn't put anything in here, but I assumed that you were using dexterity to break ties.
Sure.
So if they get moved beneath one person and then suddenly they're on the same line as somebody else, like if you've got a really tight chunk of like 15, 16, 17.
Possibly bump down 2.
They go down to 16 along with somebody, split that tie with dexterity. So they might end up going down 2, whatever. I didn't put that in there, but this one is inspired by a feature in another game that I love, Fantasy Age, which involves stunts. When you roll doubles on your dice in that game, you can use stunt points to do special bonus features and things. And one of them is called Seize the Initiative, which in that case allows you to jump above the creature you are attacking and be like above them +1. I had a hard time figuring out how to make that feel like a feat in this one, and I also like the idea of you being able to do this to multiple people and not like you get yourself to the top of the round and then this thing doesn't feel useful anymore, like if you roll really high anyway. So being able to attack other creatures, move them down, still feels like you are manipulating the order effectively without just putting yourself higher and higher. But then I made the spell Arcane Shackles. It is a 4th level enchantment with a casting time of 1 action, a range of 60 feet, verbal and somatic components, and concentration up to 1 minute. You point your finger at a creature within range, sending out chains of arcane binding. That creature must make an intelligence saving throw, and on a failed saving throw, the target becomes unable to cast spells higher than 5th level for the duration.
Yeah,
when you cast it at higher levels, you can reduce the maximum spell level your target is able to cast to a number equal to 9 minus the slot level used for this spell. So at a 4th level, you bring it down to a 5. But if you were to spend a 6th level spell, you could reduce the maximum level of spells that your target cast to 3. If you go all the way up to a 9th level spell with this, you can limit them to only using cantrips. Is that useful all the time? Probably not.
Probably not, but there are choice battles that this could be detrimental to an enemy.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely could be a game changer. And I think making it 4th level, it's not so high that it's like you're limiting your other spell options because you get so few options. Sure. So you could try and burn this a couple of times at a high-ish level spellcaster and hopefully bring them down a little bit, but you still can keep some of your higher level slots open for things that might be more directly useful or more situationally appropriate. But this is a nice fallback potential here, I think.
Agreed, 100%.
To limit spellcasters who can be, just absolute game changers on the battlefield. And if you can reduce their effectiveness, reduce how effective their action economy is, it can make a huge difference. And then we have our magic item. Discovered amid the distant ruins of a collapsed civilization, the actual function of the Omega-13 device remained unknown for years. There were many who believed it was a force of destruction and, if unleashed, could destroy all existence in a matter of moments. Others, however, thought its power lay not in the destruction of matter, but in the rearrangement of it, that might allow the user to undo a short span of time to avoid a single tragic mistake. The latter, as it happened, turned out to be the case, and its power, while limited, was enough to inspire countless adventurers to seek it out, questing across vast reaches to find it. Michael, are you familiar with the incredible film Galaxy Quest?
Big fan of Galaxy Quest.
Great.
Big fan of
As
Galaxy
you should
Quest.
be. It's a perfect film.
Thoughts on Tim Allen aside, great film.
Perfect film. Tony Shalhoub, incredible.
Tony Shalhoub, Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman. Just so good across the board. This is directly inspired by the Omega-13 device in that film. If you will recall, in that film, It was not ever truly determined in the canon of the show within the movie, Galaxy Quest, the Star Trek analog, what the Omega-13 device was, as it was introduced and then activated, and then the series was canceled on a cliffhanger. But in the movie, they discover what it actually does, because the Thermians have figured out an actual Omega-13 device, and it, in fact, sends the world back 13 seconds exactly, which is the big climactic ending moment of the movie where Tim Allen is able to save all of their lives by activating the Omega-13 device and going back 13 seconds before tragedy struck and most of the crew died. Now, 13 seconds in the span of a D&D combat is 2 rounds. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
And so I did cut it smaller, but it does have the same effect.
Okay.
The Omega-13 device is a wondrous item. It is an artifact, so high level of rarity and difficulty to acquire. This small magical cube is inscribed with containment runes to keep the swirling micro-universe of temporal potential locked within. A small collapsible plunger can extend out of the cube's top when preparing to activate the device. As an action, a creature in possession of the device can activate it, briefly pausing time and space around it. The preceding 6 seconds, 1 round of combat, immediately reverse, and the world returns to the exact state it was at the beginning of that creature's previous turn. All effects and actions are undone, and no creatures except the creature that activated the device have any recollection of the change. Once the device is used in this way, it cannot be used again until 30 days have passed.
Yep.
So it's a very limited, like you use this when you need it and not ever beyond that. I have included a DM note here though, because as mentioned before, 6 seconds is 1 round of combat. If you have a complex combat involving multiple combatants, your party along with perhaps an entire enemy side that all take very complicated actions, this is going to be a lot.
Yeah.
So I've included a note that says, this device requires both a high degree of trust at the table, as well as more comprehensive and detailed combat logging than might be typical. Keep those aspects in mind when considering adding this artifact to your game.
Yeah, that's a good note.
If you know that your players don't keep track of what just happened the combat round before, maybe no, maybe don't. If you keep really solid, like tight logs of what happens in combat, if the way you run combat is really methodical and everything like that, and you feel like you can make this work because you feel like your players aren't going to abuse it, aren't going to use it in like futile moments, go ahead. I think this could be really fun to be like, no, actually, that whole round of combat didn't happen. And only one person knows it, though. It could change everything, right? It could bring somebody back from the dead. It could,
right.
And you could save them in the moment right before they die, right? This is a game-changing, world-changing item here. And so I caution DMs to be very careful when considering adding anything even like this to your games.
I do have a question, just because it's the term round of combat, it is a very stark mechanical thing,
Yes.
right? It's top of the initiative to the bottom of the initiative. But when you're dealing with something like this, where it is being used by someone within that initiative order somewhere, 1 round of combat would rewind to that character's turn in the previous round, or does it go just back up to the top of the previous round?
I did think on that creature's turn,
Okay.
mostly just to say, on my turn, I want to undo everything that has happened since the last time I acted.
So essentially, the use of this could be you go back 6 seconds and use your past turn to try and proactively eliminate
Exactly.
something that happened in the past 6 seconds.
Right.
I attacked somebody else that I thought was a bigger threat. Turns out
Yeah.
enemy B over here was a bigger threat. I'm now going back 6 seconds and using my turn. Instead of doing this, I'm going to go over to enemy B and try and take that person down.
Exactly. And then this does mean that rolls will need to be remade, right? It means that like even
Yeah.
if the villain takes the same action, right, takes an attack action or casts a spell, you got to
And
roll
roll
again.
again, yeah.
Right? Roll again because we don't know the world state has changed. As we all know that like two tiny molecules moving in a slightly different way in one moment can have drastic changes. So change it. Change the situation. The rules get remade.
Right.
Things can change drastically. And yes, ideally, this person can then act in order to try and undo whatever just happened. So if that means getting someone out of the way so that they're not in harm's way anymore, if that means, seeing a threat that exists elsewhere on the field and going to address it before anyone else would have noticed it. In certain cases, I think this could have incredible out-of-combat utility. If, for example, you have a villain or a somebody who your party has trusted, they thought, turn on you, send a dagger into the back of your closest ally and the person who has the information you need, and everything goes haywire, and then they transport out of here. Oh my goodness, hit that Omega-13, bring it back. Now you know, and they don't know that you know. So now you can try and act.
The layers of that too are so, with that example specifically, because you're the only one that knows, right? So you're about to go back 6 seconds and attack an ally.
Yeah.
Someone who everyone else in your party thinks is an ally before they make an egregious swipe at somebody in your party. That is so interesting.
And again,
it's such a cool thing.
This is why I put in this note that it also requires a high degree of trust at the table, because you also need to trust that your players are going to behave as though the rest of them don't know what you just did. Like, you as players know that they just have activated the Omega-13. You have to behave as though you didn't, though. And that is hard. You do need trust at the table to know that that's how we're going to behave. So yes, if I'm another member of the party who doesn't know, and you go and attack a person that we thought was our ally before they attack my friend over here, I don't know you're doing that, but you just attacked them. Now that changes how I'm going to act, right? Now that changes, like, me saying, wait, I would try and grab them, stop them, restrain them, right? And so,
or at least shield the person that they went to attack or something.
It's hard to figure out how to honor that moment, and I think, again, it just requires a lot of trust at the table. So this kind of thing, I think, is really fun, has a lot of potential, but, like, use with caution, please. This is a lot.
Right. I take back my words saying that moving an entire round of combat in reverse is impossible. I can't remember if I said
I think it's near impossible. I think it's really difficult.
This is about as close as you can get. And this, like you said, this takes a high degree of responsibility from your players and a lot of care as a DM to kind of let your table know that this is something that can just be kind of a once a month one-off thing if you want to redo something real quick, but it also can have like crazy drastic effects on the plot of your story if you use it in the correct 6-second span.
I wouldn't say use this lightly. I would not recommend that DMs use this lightly. I would not recommend that players use this lightly.
Correct.
I think this is a very this is the kind of thing that it's a little bit like the deck of many things, where I'm like, I don't recommend it for anybody who's just like, let me try this. No, like, do consider what you're doing before you throw that into your game, because it will have consequences that are more far-reaching than you can imagine. So just be aware of that.
If you look at it from a strictly mechanical standpoint, all of the rolls that you assume other characters will make, unless you choose a wildly different action on your turn and they react accordingly. If you go back 6 seconds in combat, the idea would be that the creatures don't know it and they would choose to take the same actions and they're going to roll those dice again. Mechanically speaking, that is kind of giving all of those creatures advantage. Not straight advantage. They're forced to take the second roll, but if you have some low rolls in there for enemies as well, there's a good chance that they can do better on that second turn. So you have to really be sure that it is worth it.
Absolutely.
Also, I think it is necessary to note how much I enjoy both of our items directly being inspired by pop culture.
Yes.
I enjoy that so much.
It's great. It's great.
Not the other two, but the items specifically.
The items specifically. Yes. Very, very good. Very, very
so good.
Well, this was a fun one. I had a really good time with these.
Yeah, me too.
And like I said, I had so many ideas that I ended up not going with, but I just love the idea of playing with time and action economy and initiative in general. One of my ideas was like something, maybe I couldn't tell if it was a spell or a feat that like let you roll initiative for your side of the combat, like your party, and then just distribute the numbers yourself. Right, so if you want to give give the 10 to this person and give the 5 to this person and give the 13 to that person, but I also couldn't figure out how to make that work. But it felt like that was like some commander stuff, you know, like you get to decide who goes when.
The item that I ended up scrapping for this one, the one that I didn't like, initially was tied to initiative order, and it was a bag of loaded dice.
Oh.
And you, every day at dawn, you roll on a random table to see what the size of each die is in the bag. And then on your first combat, whenever you roll initiative, you have the option to, as a free action, distribute those dice to other people. And they can use those to roll initiative with their own modifier. So like if you hit like a natural 20 on the rollable table, they get 2 d20s, or like one of them was just like a d4 to roll. It was messy, and it wasn't really anywhere close to where I wanted it to be. I did put it on my document though of ideas to revisit in the future, because I do like the idea of loaded dice to try and game the system. It ended up being, it felt like more of a detriment than an actual bonus.
Yeah, I do love the
what
idea
I wanted it
of
to
like
be.
being able to swap around die sizes as a functional feature. But yeah, maybe not for this. Maybe for something else. I think
for something else. That's
there.
why I put it in. I will wait for something to come organically in the future to use that.
Well, speaking of something else, shall we roll to see what we're going to make next time?
I think so. I have my D20 ready as we speak.
Great. So you've got the D20 out. I've got our big rollable table up. If you have some ideas for homebrew stuff, whether it be items or feats or subclasses or anything else that exists within the game, shoot us a message. We'd love to have your prompts. We've got to fill out our table with something. So definitely give us those prompts. You can send those over to us at our email. That's collegeofcreationpod@gmail.com, or you can come on over to our Patreon, where you can see all of the things that we've created. They're available there for free at the free tier. You can see all the PDFs, download them, use them in your games, and we would love to have you there. And hey, while I've got you here, if you're enjoying the show, if you like the things that we make, if you're into all of this, we'd love it if you could just drop us a little review on wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps us out, helps people find the show and know what we're doing over here. And we'd love that. And we appreciate it so, so much. Thank you for being here, and thank you for listening. Michael, what are we rolling today?
Let's get down to it. Dan, that is a 2.
A 2 gives us a spell. Oh, this is an interesting spell. 2 is a spell that requires a vial of smoked cedar wood as a material component.
Okay. All right.
That's wild.
That's about as open as you can get, I suppose. Really digging into these cerebral prompts these past few weeks.
Yeah, man. These are tricky to even think of the base idea for. This could be anything. Wow. I feel like I'm going to have to go and like read into cedar trees.
Right. What's the symbolism of cedar wood?
Yeah, exactly, right? What is
and specifically after it's smoked.
What's being symbolized by the material components here? Because most material components have some sort of like symbolism or some sort of joke to them. There's some wordplay, or there's something symbolic.
Like haste. My table just discovered haste. I mean, not discovered haste, but we were talking about it recently about haste requiring licorice root as a historic medicinal diuretic.
Oh.
So the idea is that haste, you eat licorice root and it makes you want to it speeds you up because
Yeah.
you need to rush to the bathroom.
You gotta run.
because it's a powerful
go.
diuretic.
There's also, of course, there's like a copper piece for detect thoughts for a penny for your thoughts, which
Yep.
is the gag there.
So good.
Obviously, a little like, what is it? There's like, for spider climb, it's like either a little bit like sticky tar or spider webbing, something like that, kind of signifying like either spideriness or something that is sticky that will stick you to the walls or the ceiling.
Yeah.
So what is the symbolic quality here, I wonder?
If we come back next week with anything remotely close to each other, I will be shocked.
I probably
will be
won't.
shocked.
Given today, I will probably not be that surprised.
That is true.
But whatever we come up with, I'm sure it will be a delight. I'm looking forward to whatever it happens to be, and I hope you at home listening are just as excited. Until then, Michael, do you have anything to say to the people before we say goodbye?
I absolutely have something to say to the people before we say goodbye. Today is no different than any other day we've recorded this podcast, except for the 2 times I asked you to do this instead of me. Dan. Today, I actually have a question for you. A simple question that I think could leave listeners with at least a nice story. What is, and I will answer this too if you'd like me to.
Yes.
What is the most fulfilling part of running a game for you? The most fulfilling part of being a game master? Either a specific example or just a general summation.
This is a tricky one. I find a lot of things very fulfilling. I think for me, it is the moments where I don't actually do anything.
Yeah.
For me, it
Yeah.
is the moment where the world that I have created, the scenarios that I have put in front of the players, and the ways in which they have dealt with them, and the consequences, both good and ill, that they have, come to realize and grapple with, take on a reality to the point where they just begin living within that reality in such a deep and profound and fully realized way that they begin just speaking as their characters, as people, and I sit back and I listen to my friends talk in character.
I agree 100%. Anytime we, as DMs or leaders of any sphere, creatively or non-creatively, if there's something that you put a lot of yourself into and then it forms into something that can operate on its own, that's a testament to the time put into that thing and the care and passion that goes into that. There really are very few things that I can think of that are as warming to my heart as a game master than seeing something just go. Like seeing players take over and kind of narrate pieces of the story, having them contribute their own creative ideas for how things are built within the story. Just fantastic all around.
And also collaboration. The times in which I present something, and yeah, like you say, hearing the player then respond to that with adding on to it, to take it and to add more, and then I can take that and add my own pieces of that as well. And the thing we come out with is incredible. It's totally different than what I would have come up with on my own, and it's only the kind of thing that happens when there's a player who trusts you to take their ideas forward, and you trust your players to take your ideas and just push them into the next place. It's great.
So, my thing that I would like to leave our listeners with today, I think, this is my personal stance on this, I think that even if you don't think you will be good at it, or you don't think you'll like it, or you don't think you are skilled or knowledgeable enough to do it, you should try running a game at least once, because there is such a factor of fulfillment involved. It is not a completely selfless act for certain. There are a lot of things that we as GMs get back from our games and from our players.
Absolutely.
So you should try it. You should try it.
You should try it. If you're looking for tips on how to get started, check out So You Want to Be a DM.
Yeah.
Had them just on the other week, and it was a delight. But yeah, also great tips for how to play. And yeah, there are so many great resources out there for you. But let's be honest, if you've got friends, if you've got people that you trust, if you play at a table already and just want to dip your toe in, your friends will love whatever you do for them, whatever you create, whatever adventure or world you put in front of them. It will be a positive experience if you've got that trust and that care and that friendship at the table. It'll be great.
Thank you all for listening. We appreciate you to no end. Dan, thanks for recording with me today. As always,
Absolutely.
It has been a pleasure. We hope that you all will take care of yourselves, have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week, and we will talk to you again next Monday. This has been the College of Creation. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Hey everyone, Michael here. Thanks for listening to this episode of the College of Creation. If you want to see our creations from this episode and all of our past episodes, you can find those for free on our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/College of Creation Pod. If you feel like supporting us further, you can become a patron and access a few bonus recordings, like top 10 lists, D&D related games, and conversations that were cut from full episodes for time. If you have any questions or a homebrew prompt you'd like to see Dan and I tackle on the show, you can send those to collegeofcreationpod@gmail.com. And our intro and outro music is by Fuserwolf. You can check out his content on Bandcamp and Spotify. Again, thank you all so much for listening.